title of the session is Ethics, and the purpose is to assist participants to explore their values and the morals and the ethics that underpin what they do in practice. What I want to do is tell you a little bit more about ethics and what I've termed ethical posture. Posture is just a word for a position or attitude, and by ethical posture I mean something that's multidimensional. And I think that our ethical posture is the attitude we take ethically to a particular situation, and it embraces ethical rationale, professional stance and methods. The session seeks to assist participants to explore their ethical posture. And in the presentation, I talk about ethical posture, which is about their ethical rationale, their professional stance, and the methods they use. Ethical rationale means the main purpose of ethics as interpreted by you. And ethical rationale is what we believe about the world. And my ethical rationale is our philosophy of the world. So underpinning all the judgments that you've made in the rooms just now was an ethical rationale or a philosophy about the world. And I always stick with the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights that asserts the inherent dignity and inalienable rights of all members of the human family, because that embraces equality, inclusion, and all the things that I would like to think are important. And I think it's true for all of us in our profession that there are values that we hold to which are philosophical, which are part of our ethical rationale. And there's a key word which I think is really important that underpins what we do, and it's beneficence, which is beneficence, and it means doing things we do with good intentions about the human being in mind. So beneficence is a word that means what we do is for the greater good of humanity or the greater good of people. So underpinning what we do is a philosophy that the world can be a better place and that we can do something to help make it a better place for people. And then, so we have our ethical rationale at the top, which is our philosophy about the way that the world is. Then we have our professional stance, which is about how we conceptualize our professional role. And I've got there, for example, does it involve counselling, for example? Because I think that none of us are probably, I don't know, some of us may be, but probably none of us are trained counsellors. But we do counselling in our professional role because we're often in a situation where informal counselling is an appropriate response to somebody's situation. So our professional stance is how we conceptualise the professional role and what we believe is important in our professional role. And we've just done the ethical dilemmas where we've really focused on what we think it's right and wrong to do professionally. And another dimension of professional stance is, do we stop when participants are distressed? That's something that is an ethical thing. Do we stop an engagement with an individual when the participant is distressed? And we can't answer that because it depends on the situation. But it may be that somebody is distressed, but they need to work through that. So we don't stop, we stay with them and help them work through it. Or it may be that somebody's being distressed by something we're doing and it wasn't our intention, so we stop. So our professional stance is about what we do professionally. It can be different in different situations, but we've got an ethical rationale of philosophy, we've got a professional judgment about what we do professionally. And I gave you that example, I gave two groups an example of the Reverend George Davies asking me why, if I was a homeless youth worker, I didn't have homeless young people in my spare bedroom, which is a professional stance that I had taken, which was that I wasn't prepared to make my family have to participate in my professional life. But it's something that's very, it's a professional stance I've taken, because in another circumstance, if it was a friend who was homeless, they could sleep on my sofa or my spare room. So it's a professional stance we take. Then there's ethical methods, which is what we actually do. And what we do is linked to what we believe. So it's about how friendly are we with participants. And we looked in the moral dilemmas at whether or not we think it's right to be friendly with participants. And there's a bit of a definitely no, definitely yes, and a blurry area in the middle where it's possible that you can have friendships with a member of a management committee that you were friendly with before who's now just joined the committee, and it's just the situation. But ethical methods are how we deal with the power imbalance between us and participants, because I think power is inherent in every ethical dilemma that we come across. Because with friendship, there is no we're equal, probably we're equal. With participants, there's that relationship, I would argue. There's a relationship where we are doing something that has an intention and a purpose that we're seeking to make life different for them, or help them to make life different for themselves. So ethical methods are how we deal with the dilemmas that we encounter and how we deal with the power imbalance between us and participants. In the group task, I asked them to explore the ethical code of practice, and the ethical code of practice involved reading it and looking at what they thought were the strengths and limitations of the code of practice, and then we shared it in a larger group. And then I asked them to look at some ethical dilemmas which were taken from real life in CLD, and were intended to assist them to explore for themselves what they thought about particular ethical situations. As I was working with the groups over there, and I'm sure it'll be the same with the group in here, I heard a number of words coming up again and again. One was professional and personal. There's the difference between what you do professionally and what you do in your home life, and how you would behave, for example, giving somebody money if they're sitting on the street or whatever, or giving them a sandwich or a meal or something is different from what you do professionally. I heard the words victim, value judgments, and values coming up quite often, and the word power as well in terms of relationships.